they're all the way up to the river now. They've got their drill there. They've got their corporate flag there at the end of the construction path by the river. They've got their bright lights burning all night long right over where the Water Protectors camp is for their construction that's going 24 hours lickety-split to build as fast as possible and be ready to drill right through that river. About 90% of this pipeline is complete through all the states where it goes. This is one of the few spots where it's not complete. It's just the actual Lake Oahe crossing. And despite this urging by the federal government, at least temporarily before Trump gets in office, who's an investor, the state of North Dakota, it has put all its resources towards protecting the pipeline company's construction at the expense of whatever they have to do to the water protectors, whether they're elders, grandmothers, people who are yanked out of prayer ceremony, and grandmothers loaded onto buses and strip searched and put into cages, all to keep the construction going, even though there's no permit right now to cross a river. So they've brought in law enforcement from all over the state and from surrounding states, although there's been some backlash where some of the surrounding states have pulled their law enforcement. The National Guard is there, and there's an emergency situation right now where last night water cannons mixed with mace and impact munitions were used on peaceful water protectors who were simply trying to clear the highway in order to allow emergency vehicles through to have access to the camp, because law enforcement has the highway completely blocked, and it was like 20 degrees, and they sprayed water on people with there were many very serious injuries. This just happened last night, so I'm actually going to have to run soon because I'm working on that. I've been to the camp 3 times. The first day I got there was September 3rd, and that was really the day that the violence really started toward the water protectors. That was the day that the pipeline company unleashed their attack dogs and drove a truck into someone and pepper sprayed a bunch of peaceful water protectors who actually had just walked up the road for a prayer ceremony and were startled to see that there was construction going on right by the road, because what had happened is that in the lawsuit in Washington, D.C., where Standing Rock and Cheyenne River are trying to enjoin the construction, they had just, this was Labor Day weekend, and the Friday afternoon before the Labor Day weekend, they had filed a new affidavit in the case in Washington, D.C. from a native archaeological expert who had discovered some very significant sacred sites, burial sites, historic cultural sites. Wow. Right on the pipeline path there that had not been identified in the company's own survey that they're required to do to comply with various federal laws around historic sites and around consultation with the tribes. And the location of these sacred sites had never been revealed in writing before, for good reason, because the next morning the company came and they bulldozed a bunch of those sacred sites and burial sites. So that was on Saturday, September 3rd. Nobody expected to see them working on the Saturday of Labor Day weekend, and they had actually jumped their construction route by about 20 miles to come specifically bulldoze that area. And they, when when the water protectors came running over because they saw the construction, the construction workers left, but they had lined up private security for that day with these attack dogs that came from Ohio seemed pretty, the people in the dogs seemed pretty untrained, and a bunch of people were bitten by the dogs, and this was very traumatic, especially for Lakota people for whom dogs are sacred, so that was a pretty horrible day. It's after that law enforcement took over, but not with very much improvement, except that they haven't used dogs so far. There have been a series of illegal arrests, including another peaceful prayer march in which people were basically kind of led into an isolated area where they were surrounded by militarized vehicles, guns were pointed at them, on your knees, you're all under arrest. 2 of our National Lawyers Guild lawyers were there as legal observers, got arrested, and 140 people who were not even really close to the construction were unlawfully arrested that day. And so we now have, I think, close to 500 or over 500 total arrests since August, and so the following Thursday, October 27th, law enforcement came in to raid a part of the camp that had been set up on the construction route. They brought in every possible law enforcement agency. That's where elders were dragged out of a prayer circle or 2 prayer circles. And so what's been happening after the arrests is that people are abused in the jails. They've charged, so that day there were another 100 and something people were arrested, all charged with felony reckless endangerment or felony conspiracy to endanger by fire. And there was a little fire, but none of these people were anywhere near the fire who were arrested. They were primarily arrested in these 2 prayer circles that had like 50 people each in them. And so their sacred and ceremonial items were taken and not treated correctly. Elders were strip searched. They were placed in these cage-like, dog kennel-like cages in an unheated garage. They were made to take all their outer clothing off. They were left there for a long period of time. They weren't fed. They were denied the right to call a lawyer. So we're actually preparing a lawsuit around the strip searches and the conditions of custody and the seizure of the sacred and ceremonial items, some of which were urinated on, dumped on the road.
Yes.
People were driven all over to jails all over the state, many hours away. Their clothes were lost. Elders were released, like having to wear the orange jumpsuit. Yeah, you have a question?
Yes.